Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. There was no call last week. Last week was the week from hell for me. We had a sudden death in the family the eve of last week's call, and I had to leave the state and travel quickly. And then when I got back, my computer nearly crashed, and so we were really unable to resuscitate the thing, so I had to purchase a new computer, and so I'm hoping I can handle this call. The format's different. I'm not a computer guy myself, but I will do my best. Today's call is going to be a little shorter. I'm going to talk about the situation in Iraq and globally, and with regard to some things that are going on in this country as well, because they all sort of dovetail into our concerns about the dinar and what's going to happen with that wealth and with us after we acquire it. There are some strange things going on in the government, and it's not beyond the realm of possibility that some of the things that they're attempting to do, and I'll get into more detail about what I mean by that, have to do directly or at least indirectly with the anticipation of the revaluation of the dinar and some of these other currencies. The U.S. dollar, though it ironically is strong internationally, there's a lot of pushback, and again, I'll get into that in a little bit more detail. For those calling in for the first time, I strongly suggest you go to our call. I believe it was either August 24th or 25th. You go to YouTube, type in Trusts Unlimited, then select the date. Again, it's either August 24th or 25th. It has a detailed explanation of the turnkey program we put in place to assist you. But for today, we're going to talk a little bit about the things that I mentioned earlier. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information we believe to be relevant. The most relevant piece of information would be the window for the potential reinstitution of the dinar. Now, there's bad news and there's good news. Domestically, within Iraq, it looks like we're in a little bit of a state of limbo because of the chaotic situation with regard to the parliament. I'll explain that in a little bit more detail. The good news is when you look at what's going on internationally, the only plausible explanation for it is they have already calculated that the dinar and some of these other currencies are going to revalue, so it's only a matter of when, not if. Let's just hope it's sooner rather than later. But let's start and talk a little bit about what's going on in Iraq domestically. Well, right now, the struggle between the Sadrists and the coalition framework continues. As a matter of fact, Sadr has warned that protests will start again in the Green Zone if Parliament is not dissolved by September 17th. Once again, the problem seems to be Maliki. The coalition framework did offer an olive branch. They've suggested that they would want to appoint as Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, who is considered by the Sunni and the Kurds as the best choice. It's not a choice that they would make, but it's the best choice they could expect from the coalition framework. So we're just going to have to see how this plays out. I'm going to get into a little bit more detail about what's going on there. But essentially, the coalition framework is still run, or its leadership are pro-Iranian folks that want Iraq to remain a fiefdom within the purview of Iran. And, of course, there are the sectarian and tribal issues which continue to exist within the culture. That's the bad news. The good news is internationally. The banks of the EU and based on some conversations I've had recently, U.S. banks as well are going to be allowing the exchange of the IQD. Now, this is not going to change the value of the currency, but what it means is that these banks, both in the EU and the United States, soon thereafter, acknowledge that the Iraqi dinar is a functional currency, meaning that beyond its exchange for goods and services within the country of Iraq proper, it will be a functional currency globally, and so they're allowing exchange to the IQD. Second, there are a dozen country coalition, along with a lot of three-letter international agencies that are pushing for increased trade with Iraq and direct investment into the nation of Iraq. So there is no way that those two things would be happening, again, unless the calculation has already been made that the Iraqi dinar and some of these other currencies as well will reinstitute and revalue in the near future. Now, the near future could be January or the first quarter of next year, or the near future could be in a matter of weeks. But there's no way that they're going down this road, again, unless they've already calculated that these currencies are going to reinstitute and revalue. So it's no more complicated than that. Now, of course, we will always have an issue with Maliki. He's a poison pill. He's a nefarious character. He has an agenda that's not, in my opinion, pro-Iraqi. It's pro-12th Imam Shia agenda. So that's unfortunately the issue we have with this individual. But again, the fact that they've offered up as Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani means that they at least understand that the international community has put sufficient pressure on Iraq that they're going to have to create a government that is, to some extent, inclusive with regard to the Shia, the Sunni, and the Kurds. Now, for those of you who are dinarians, again, I would suggest, and then you're calling in for the first time, I would suggest you go to our call of August 24th or 25th. I apologize. I can't remember specifically what day it was. But if you are an American citizen, not just a dinarian, but whether you're a dinarian or not, if you are an American citizen, you are going to need the protection of this Family Asset Protection Trust program for the very simple reason that we are entering a high-tax, high-surveillance state situation right now. The current government in Washington, irrespective of whether you are ambivalent about their legitimacy, is working as hard as they can to, and in their words, fundamentally transform the United States of America. Now, why would you establish this trust package? What's the benefit? Forgetting whether or not you have currencies. As a matter of fact, let's just stipulate you don't have currencies. Let's say you're not even a wealthy person, but you've worked hard all your life. You've accumulated a certain amount of wealth, and you don't feel like summarily handing it over to the government because they have some ridiculous program that they want to use it for. Well, first of all, by establishing this trust and transferring assets to the trust, it means that your wealth is sealed because everything in the trust is sealed. What does that mean? It means that the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. When you establish this trust, you will establish an EIN number for that trust. So if, for example, a private investigator or forensic accountant or some nosy busybody decided they wanted to find out for whatever reason what you were worth, they wouldn't be able to find out anything because they would have to operate under your name and or your Social Security number, which has nothing to do with the trust itself. Even if they have the EIN number for the trust, they cannot get any information about the trust. Why not? Well, the only reason that a person would want to know what's in your trust is because they were involved in or contemplating a civil suit against you, or even worse, they were intending to file some sort of a criminal action against you. Well, let's first talk about a civil suit. In order for an individual to be able to pierce this trust, to get any information about it at all, they would have to go to a court, civil court, and they would have to show cause. In other words, they would have to provide evidence that you've defrauded them or in some way violated ethically or legally something that damaged them in some way. And that's a very high bar. Then we have the issue of the IRS. And as I said, we've created a high-tax, high-surveillance nation-state. The new Inflation Reduction Act, which is actually the Inflation Production Act. As a matter of fact, within days after passing this thing, they started calling it the Climate Change Bill. So it's not got anything to do with inflation. But they hired 87,000 agents in order to make sure that the billionaires and the large corporations are paying their fair share in taxes. Well, we have a nation of about 340 million people, and we have in that huge nation, about 7,500 billionaires. Why does the federal government need 87,000 armed agents to audit among the 7,500 billionaires, the ones that they think are cheating the government? It's all a ruse. It's all nonsense. It's all BS. They've hired 87,000 agents because the hard left wants to destroy the middle class. If you look at everything that they've done, it's to destroy the middle class. I want you to think about that. Because most of us are middle class or upper middle class individuals. We pay our taxes. We obey the laws. We don't want to harm anyone. We just want to be left alone. And the government just refuses, at least the people in charge right now. So what have they done to the middle class? They put us in a squeeze between inflation and taxation. This is classic. This is how it's done. Any student of economics and history understands this. But that's not even enough for them. Whatever is left over after they're done with the inflation and the taxation, they want to create a digital currency. I've discussed this before. The removal of the hard currency eliminates all control you have over your life. You can only do two things with a digital currency. You can leave it with the Treasury Department, or you can exchange it for a good or service. Can't put it in your pocket, can't give it to somebody. Anything you do with it is on record, is on file. Now, why would they keep files unless they planned to segregate people based on their spending habits? For example, they're going to know who purchased a weapon. They're going to know who contributed to what political party. They're going to know what countries you travel to. They're going to know all of this. And there are ways to get around this, and we'll be discussing that. Then there's the issue of auditing the middle class. The IRS is well known, even with all of these new agents, since now their new target is about 150 million people. 87,000 agents is spread a little thinner. The IRS is well known for going after the low-hanging fruit, because that's what bullies do. Are they going to go after an individual that has a very sophisticated trust package such as ours, and they have very competent legal representation? Or are they going to go after the small mom-and-pop business or Joe Lunchbox who has no representation and is scared to death of the IRS? No, they're going to go after the low-hanging fruit. So we've made it extremely difficult for them to pursue and to proceed against us. Even the IRS can't pierce your trust without reason. Now, one of the arguments against the fact that they wouldn't do that is the recent raid on the Mar-a-Lago. Well, if they would raid an ex-president, what's to stop them from going after us? Well, let's talk for a moment about what happened there. The raid on Mar-a-Lago was based on something called a general warrant. A general warrant is unconstitutional. I was debating whether I was going to read the Fourth Amendment. I think I'm going to read it here and then explain what I mean by this. The Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, quote, "The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Okay, what does this mean? First, it means that the warrant itself can only be issued upon probable cause. Further, that the basis of the warrant must be the result of an oath or affirmation, which we would refer to today as an affidavit. And third, that the warrant should be very specific about the things you are looking for. The Mar-a-Lago raid was done based on a general warrant which had no specifics whatsoever. Basically, it says anything that we find that has anything to do with the presidency at all, that is a general warrant that's unconstitutional. Further, that warrant was based on an oath or affirmation, in other words, an affidavit, which established that there was evidence of illegal activity. Yet they refused to release the affidavit. Why? Because it's garbage. That's why. This is why you need a trust, because this is the kind of things that they can do to people that don't have the protections they need. At the very least, by the establishment of this trust, the IRS and or any criminal investigation would necessarily require that your Fourth Amendment rights are protected. They should be protected anyway, but unfortunately, people that do not have the protection of a trust and don't have legal representation are exposed to what's going on. They didn't hire 87,000 agents to do nothing. They don't like us. They're coming after us. Now, some have suggested that one of the reasons they did this is because it's estimated that about 10 to 12 million Americans have currencies. They're going to become overnight millionaires. These are people that are not going to vote for higher taxes, larger government, more infiltration into our lives. And, of course, the digital currency makes things even worse. So what this trust does in summary, it protects your privacy. It protects you against civil suit. It protects your Fourth Amendment rights against illegal searches and seizures. It has certain tax advantages based on the continued printing of money to fund all of these pie-in-the-sky programs. We're going to see more inflation. We're going to see the devaluation of financial assets. You're going to want to move to tangible assets, and the best way to possess these tangible assets is within the trust package, because you're going to be able to buy and sell within the package, and there are certain tax advantages to that, as well as the privacy and the asset protection. So whether you hold currencies or not, based on the situation we find ourselves in today, any American citizen would do well if he owns anything of value. And I'll even stipulate it. Let's say you have an estate worth $500,000 or more, and that's not a lot in this world. And you want to protect that for yourself, and you want to be able to transfer it to your children and grandchildren without the interference of the government, and without having to go through probate, and without having to pay federal death taxes and all of that. The only way to accomplish that is through the establishment of this trust. I strongly suggest you contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. It has a lot of information about the trusts, about the currencies, but what's most important to every American are the protections that it provides you as an American citizen by ensuring that your Fourth Amendment rights are protected. Now, you can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. If you wish to purchase a package, you can go to our website, you can go to our email, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com, or you can call our phone service, which is 307-274-4122. We'll be happy to send you our initial no-obligation package. All we need is your email address. You can review the package, contact us. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. This is what I wanted to share with you today. I hope it's been informative. I hope it's been helpful. And again, I hope our newer callers will take up our offer to get our initial package and and learn about how these trusts work and how they're going to protect you. Our next call will be next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email to everyone on our email list and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for listening, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye.